Hello, EnderSword here again, this time with a replay from the Bronze League. We've got a Zerg versus Zerg today. Everyone knows that ZvZs tend to be really awesome, and the lower level ones even more so, given how micro-intensive they tend to be. You often get some interesting looking situations pop up. Our player that we're going to be focusing on today is Ouroboros here in the top right-hand corner. His opponent in the bottom left corner is Remuko, who's going to be our evil Zerg player for today, the bad guy. The three things that we're going to be focusing on in this game are, number one, defensiveness versus passiveness. There's a big difference between being defensive and just being plain passive. Number two, we're going to look at drones versus units. When you can get away with making drones, when you can get away with making units or need to make units, and when people get stuck on unit autopilot. Number three is going to be scouting and responding. Not just scouting and responding how you should or how pros would do it, but responding in a way that matches what your skill set is. And that's usually very important. So we see the blue player Ouroboros here going for what was a 9 pool. He put that down on 9. Usually that's something you do if you plan to be either really aggressive or you expect that your opponent is being really aggressive, like 6 pooling, and you want to defend against it. We can see that Remuko is sending out his overlords towards 2 other bases, but Ouroboros isn't going to be doing any scouting at all this game. He's just decided not to do that, so he won't be partaking in that sort of thing. He's got the pool up, but for no real reason. It is an aggressive build to do, but he's not going to be making lings behind that to back it up. One major thing that he's doing wrong here, he's got the hatchery just dropping drones where they pop out. He's got the individual eggs rallied to individual points, but he's not rallying them all to the mineral line. So on a few of those occasions, he would have a drone or two just sitting there before he came along and swept it towards the mineral line. You can rally individual eggs where you want them to go, but set by default to the mineral line so that if you forget, at least they're doing something, and then you can always pull them off after. And you can always still set the hatchery to a place and still override it by telling an egg what to do. You can always override what you tell the hatchery to do later on, but don't just leave it blank like this, or else you're going to miss a lot of mining time. An Evo chamber goes down here, but he had no plan in actually using that at the moment. There's nothing he could afford tech-wise out of this, so it's a bit of a waste at the moment. He's not going to be doing any upgrades because he doesn't have any gas, nor has he gotten the ling speed upgrade yet, so it's unlikely that he would do anything at the Evo chamber prior to getting the ling speed upgrade. Instead, he's opted to go straight to lair tech, which also doesn't make any sense in this case. He doesn't plan to do anything behind this. He doesn't know what his opponent is doing at all. Again, looking at his point of view, he literally doesn't even know what base he's in. He has no information on what his opponent is doing whatsoever. But he's deciding on this very strong but meandering tech path. We see 2 spine crawlers going up here, again in response to something, which we don't know what it is yet. But they're also in an oddly passive position. They're meant to be defense, but they're way too far back so that when this engagement happens at the ramp, they're just out of range for what we're looking for. And they're so far back that really you could just run by them if you felt like it. They're not really helping with anything. There's no point at which the enemy is really forced to go into the spine crawlers, so they're not helping a lot with the defense, nor do they cover the actual mineral line if that were to be attacked. So we see here a standard ZvZ situation. You've got lings versus lings and veins. Banelings, of course, just kind of crash against them. There's not a lot of micro really at this level, like at the Bronze League level. He's just allowed to hit the drones completely free, and then he tries to morph banelings in the mineral line. Luckily, Ouroboros does see that at least and gets out of there in time before they actually pop and completely ruin his day, but they do decide to just crash into the queen anyway and basically not do any damage. I've said before, when you pull your drones, workers, whatever off, hotkey them to something so that the moment you want them to go back, you just hit 0, 9, whatever you put them on, and send them right back. You don't have to go looking for them, select them, bring them back. It'll just save you a bit of time and make them more maneuverable. Imagine he moved them right up there and 2 more banelings came in. The entire game would be over. So get those on a hotkey. Also, just plain use hotkeys in general. He's not using any whatsoever. His opponent has at least his hatchery and... This is an absolute minimum. Your hatchery and queen need to be hotkeyed so that you can do your injects and just make things. But your army should be hotkeyed and key buildings and things like that. Always use hotkeys, get used to it. So we see more spine crawlers going down, getting up to a total of 5. And this brings us to the overall idea of passiveness versus defensiveness. Right now, Ouroboros is being passive. He's not defending until something is ready. He doesn't have something in mind that he's going towards or saving up for that's then going to allow him to come out and kill his opponent shortly after. He's just defending himself against waves of units coming in. Nothing that he's making is aggressive. The Hydras certainly aren't going to be aggressive. It would take them about a month to cross the map because there's no creep spread going, and they're one of the slowest units out there. So they're all right defensively. Even then, it's very questionable given how squishy they are. You know you're fighting banelings. It doesn't make a lot of sense to be making these. Roaches would be a better bet there. But also, he's not going to attack with them. There's no offensive threat here. And there's no impending offensive threat. There's no way that this base is going to turn into an offensive threat in the next 5 to 6 minutes. It's just not going to happen. He's also basically decided to stop making drones at this point. He's got up to 16. Made a couple more each time he's made a building or spine crawler, but as far as Ouroboros is concerned, this economy is just fine for him. And now he's only going to be making military units. You can see in contrast, the player over here has not only expanded, but he's mixing units and drones at the same time. He's making 4 lings at the same time he's making 4 drones. You can see there the problem with the Hydra defense is it only takes a couple banelings to take out a Hydra as well. There's only 80 hit points on them. If you're really concerned about banelings hitting you, roaches are a lot more stable. They have 145 hit points, and they do regenerate health a little better, particularly if you get burrow and so forth. So they're a little more stable, and they can take out banelings pretty well. And they also then have some actual offensive potential. You can get a big roach army and push out. And this is where it gets into scouting and responding for something that you are capable of doing. I know a lot of people get really frustrated with Zerg versus Zerg, particularly at low levels, because it is really micro-intense. Banelings are a big part of it, and it's hard enough at high levels of play to actually separate your lings and banelings, and you have to be controlling them almost individually to actually get a results out of them. And that's fine for IMST and Coca and Idra and stuff like that. They can do that, but you're not going to be able to do that unless your ATM is in the couple hundred range or thereabouts. So you have to do what is reasonable for you to do. If you know that your opponent is on ling banelings, and you don't believe you have the micro capable of really dealing with that, then don't. Don't just play a game of let's smash them together and see who's hit who's first. if that's not something that you're comfortable doing, go around it. Make roaches. Make something that is a little more durable and avoids that game. If they're doing something that you're not comfortable with, try and do something to push them out of that thing instead of actually combating them head to head on that thing. So I see a lot of people get trapped in these Ling Baneling games, and you don't have to. If you don't see that he's coming super early with it, if he's going to the Banelings before really committing to an attack, you could have gone to roaches, and then you just kind of shut it down in a way that stops them from playing this rock, paper, scissors game with you. You can see again here that he's only stuck on the 16 drones. We've now got red absolutely out of control. He's got 36 drones. He's switched into mutas, which are now coming here. The Banelings do get a good blast on the Lings as they come in, but unfortunately, even with Hydras there to counter the mutas, there's just not really anything he can do at this point. The army can be replenished very, very quickly, and just nothing he can do. Even with Ouroboros having some money to produce, he doesn't have gas. Note that he accidentally put 2 on each of his extractors when he pulled everything and put them back. That's not good. And gas was really holding him back this game. But just overall economic development was what was holding him back. He needed to take another base. He needed to do something that wasn't completely defensive. He needed to, or again, not completely passive. If you're going to defend, you always have to be able to finish the sentence, I am defending until, and then have something at the end of that sentence. So, I am defending until I have 20 roaches. I'm defending until my mutas are done. I'm defending until I have Baneling speed and Ultralist, or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, but you have to be able to finish that sentence. I'm defending until something happens. I'm defending until this. If you can't complete that sentence, then you're not defending, you're being passive, and you can't do that. The second thing, again, drones. You just can't get stuck on unit autopilot. Tends to go hand in hand with the defensive, and it tends to go hand in hand with the over-aggressive. People get too aggressive and they make only units, or people feel like they're under siege and they make only units, and they stop making drones. But if you're under siege, you're not going to get out of it unless you make your economy better. And if you are attacking, unless it's completely all in, you're not going to be able to follow it up unless you're making drones. So you have to find some point during the game to make drones. And no matter what you're doing, 16 isn't enough. The third thing, again, is scouting and responding. At no point during this entire game did Ouroboros even attempt to scout, literally to the point of not knowing which of the 3 bases his opponent was in. And once that army did come to his base, you have to respond in a way that you're comfortable with. You have to come up with a plan that makes sense for what they're doing. And in this case, Hydras followed by Banelings doesn't make sense. One of them just doesn't make sense, period. You're making another unit that can be easily killed by splash damage. And the Banelings are just beyond this player's skill set. It's not something he has the capability of microing to do. It was just a random clash, one against the other, when it happens. So, play with him whatever your means are. You can obviously practice outside your means, but when you're trying to just win a game, do something that you know how to do. Just go with it. So thanks for watching. Hope that's helpful. This is one of the harder matchups, particularly at the low level to learn. So I hope that is helpful.